2026年、アメリカ経済はどうなるのか。ニュースでは景気は悪くないと言われる一方で、普通の人たちの生活はかなり苦しいのが現実です。物価は高いまま、家賃も食費も下がらず、給料だけが追いついていません。アメリカは世界一の経済大国ですが、決して余裕のある状況ではないんです。
Federal Reserve just printed $13.5 billion to inject it into the economy, and they're going to print $40 billion every single month to help us out. All that means is the dollar is going to lose its value. Your paychecks are becoming less valuable. Inflation is going to skyrocket and the cost of goods is going to go up. And already we're seeing gold and silver reaching their all-time high throughout human history because the US dollar is losing its value. 2026 and 2027, we're going to see the wealth gap increase drastically. Once mass layoffs start happening, AI will start replacing jobs. This may be the last few years where you can actually accumulate wealth.
You know how you know our healthcare is an actual joke in the US? Healthcare just got cut for so many Americans because they can't afford it without the subsidies. And since subsidies gone starting next year because of the government shutdown, like most people can't afford it. My best friend is type 2 diabetic and she's on insulin. Her insulin is over $1,000 for each vial. They can't afford that. They have 2 kids and their health insurance is going from $200 a month with subsidies because of low income to now it's going to be almost $1,400 a month because the subsidies were cut. Their employer's health insurance is actually more expensive than going through Marketplace. But don't worry, I'm sure several of you will say they just need to work harder, right? Not that healthcare just needs to do better.
There is a political cost to AI that almost nobody is talking about, and it's going to absolutely explode the 2026 elections. In the Virginia election last month, a Democrat flipped a key seat in a deep red district running on one issue alone, the rising costs of AI data centers. And voters in Georgia recently staged a landslide revolt, ousting 2 Republicans for the Utility Commission over surging energy bills. For the first time, electricity bills aren't a side issue. They're a career killer for these politicians. Electricity is the socialized cost of AI. Trillion-dollar companies are getting the profit, but you're the one paying for the new transmission line on your monthly bill. A single AI data center uses as much power as 100,000 homes. To be fair, tech companies like Google and Amazon claim they're paving their own way with new power plants and renewable energy deals. But in states like Indiana, even with the safeguards, residents are still on the hook to pay up to 40% of the cost of hooking up these giants to the grid. People were already skeptical of AI because of jobs and slop and whatnot, but now this has the potential to become a real political revolt. You can imagine that the cost of energy will be the new cost of eggs in 2026.
So CTV recently reported that food prices are going to rise in the next year. And honestly, that's pretty alarming if you've already been stressed about grocery costs, especially with food bank usage hitting record highs. With over a quarter of Canadian households saying they're struggling to put food on the table, it's scary to think that that number could go up in 2026. So I thought we should do a little brainstorming together. How are you planning to save a little or get a little bit more budget savvy with food over the next year? Here's what my family's been doing. For the last few years, we've invested in half a cow from a local farmer. Yes, the upfront price can feel a little bit intimidating, but over the year, it actually saves us quite a bit. Plus, the meat is amazing quality, it's pasture raised, the animals are treated well, and it supports a small local farmer. This is something that you want to do, but it feels a little out of reach. You might want to consider going in on something like this with family to reduce the cost. We buy eggs and other basics straight from farms when we can. It's cheaper and fresher, and honestly, it tastes so much better. The other thing we do is we shop deals and discounts at our local stores. We use those discounted items to batch cook. It means that we're not scrambling last minute for meals. We make big meals, we freeze portions, and it stretches out our budget. So basically we plan meals around what's on sale. We get creative with pantry staples like beans, rice, pasta, and canned vegetables. It's just a great way to use items that are a little bit cheaper, that often go on sales and have deals, and also stretch out their use. Also try to be aware of the cost per pound. So even if something has a little bit of a higher upfront price, over time it actually saves on cost. And combining these tricks have really saved us over the year. I'd love to hear what's working for you. Drop your tips in the comments because I have a feeling that we're all going to be looking for ways to save on groceries in 2026.
Here's the strange thing about the world economy. For years, people kept saying big crash is coming, and for years it didn't happen. COVID hit, people expected a long depression. Instead, the economy bounced back fast, but with high inflation. Then central banks raised interest rates aggressively. Everyone said, now we're definitely getting a recession. Still didn't happen. Then Donald Trump announced major tariffs on all the countries. Markets panicked, stocks crashed for a moment. People feared a huge trade war, but the tariffs were softened, markets recovered, and stocks went on a massive bull run. Even now, the US economy is slower than before, but it's not collapsing. Globally, growth has slowed, but it hasn't stopped. So the big question is, will this resilience continue in 2026? The short answer is probably no big crash, but also no easy wins. The risks. Okay, first big problem. Trade war isn't over. The US still has higher tariffs than before, especially with China. Some of the worst tariffs are only paused, not gone. They can come back at any time. Even if courts limit Trump's power to set tariffs freely, his administration is already preparing other legal ways to keep tariffs high. That means uncertainty for businesses, investors, and prices. Uncertainty slows the economy. Companies hesitate to invest. Supply chains stay messy. Prices stay higher than they should be. Second problem, tariffs mess with inflation and interest rates. Tariffs raise prices. By 2026, they could be adding about 1% to US inflation. That puts the Federal Reserve in a tough position. Markets want interest rate cuts, but if inflation stays high, the Fed may refuse. Unlike earlier inflation, this one doesn't come with strong job growth. Tariffs slow growth instead of boosting it, so the Fed may have to accept weaker job markets just to keep prices under control. That's painful and politically explosive. Third problem, political pressure on the Fed. There's also the risk that Trump pressures the Fed directly. The current Fed chair, Jerome Powell, is stepping down as chair in 2026. His likely replacement is Chris Waller, seen as technical and serious. But if Trump picks someone more political, Powell might stay on the Fed's board to protect its independence. At the same time, Supreme Court may rule whether Trump can remove another Fed governor, Lisa Cook. If that removal is allowed, it could open the door to kicking out other Fed officials. Markets hate this. If investors think the Fed is no longer independent, they start demanding higher interest rates to protect themselves from inflation. Fourth problem, governments are drowning in debt. After COVID, governments spent massively to keep economies alive. It worked, but now debt is extremely high. France can stabilize its budget. Britain is raising its taxes to the levels not seen since 1950s and still struggles. The US is likely to run a deficit of around 6% of GDP in 2026, even with tariff revenue. High debt creates temptation. Governments start pressuring central banks to keep interest rates low, so debt is cheaper to manage. That's how bond markets break. We've seen it before, like Britain in 2022. If bond markets panic in a big country like France or Japan, global financial conditions tighten fast. If it happens in the US, it will be a shock to the entire world. Final risk, stock markets and the AI bubble. One reason people still feel okay is the stock market, especially because of artificial intelligence. AI optimism has pushed stocks higher. When stocks rise, people feel richer. When people feel richer, they spend more, even if the wages are not growing fast. But here's the issue. Most AI hardware is imported. The real economy is smaller than people think. If confidence in AI collapses, stock markets fall. People feel poorer, spending drops. That alone might not cause a recession, but combined with tariffs, debt, and slow growth, it would leave very little to celebrate. So the world economy has been tougher than expected. That doesn't mean it's healthy. 2026 probably won't bring dramatic collapse, but it could bring slower growth, higher tension, and more instability.
I'm going to read you a headline. Mass layoffs taking place next month. Mass layoffs taking place next month. In this post above, I reported that we are at unemployment levels now compared to COVID. Yes. And now the headline for today on Newsweek is mass layoffs are taking place next month. How do you see if your company is laying off? One of the ways is to go to the layoff website, Warn Tracker. You can sort it by year and your state, and it is going to be catastrophic. I have been telling you it is going to get worse and worse and worse, and it is. Thousands are going to be cut in January, adding concerns to the outlook for the American labor force after an already rocky 2025. The average unemployment went up to 4.6, but it is as high as 6% in some states. Look for unemployment to continue to skyrocket. We have a bad economic policy in place. We have jobs that are not hiring because of tariffs, uncertainty, bad economic policy. Please do the best that you can to get your finances in order.
専門家の予測では、2026年のアメリカ経済は大きく崩れはしないけれど、楽になるわけでもないと言われています。実際、アメリカではインフレ率は下がってきたものの、物の値段は高いまま、特に家賃や医療費、保険料は多くの家庭を圧迫しています。この状況が続くと何が起きるか。まず、アメリカの消費が弱くなります。そうなると、アメリカに物を売っている日本企業の業績にも影響が出ます。株価、為替、物価、結果的に日本での私たちの生活にも跳ね返ってくるんです。 つまりアメリカ経済は遠い国のニュースではなく、私たちの生活にも影響する話です。あなたは2026年の景気はどうなると思いますか？ぜひコメントで教えてください。最後までご覧いただきありがとうございました。